Welcome back to the Means Report, talking to Dr. Craig Albert, getting all sorts of political insight into what just happened in the midterm elections and what happens going forward. And Dr. Albert, at the beginning of the newscast, the broadcast was spent talking about Georgia's governor's race because it's still locked up. But there were other governor's races that the nation was watching when it comes to Trump indicators. Will he or will he not get a second term? We saw some Republican governors go down.
That's right, we did in the Midwest and the Rust Belt, where the Democrats overlooked in 2016 that allowed Trump. In my opinion, those were the states that allowed Trump to win the presidency. These very same Michigan, Wisconsin, these are the states, Pennsylvania, these are the states that went Democrat this time. Now, what that means for re-election for Donald Trump in 2020, he's not going to have the party apparatus controlling the states during the re-election campaign anymore. He's not going to have the good, vast ground campaign in place run by the state's governor's office during this re-election campaign. That changes everything. We can expect the Dems to have a very good ground campaign to start now that they're going to be controlling the governorships in these major Rust Belt states.
So it's okay as a voter to say, let me see what party that state's governor is, and that'll pretty much help me figure whether Trump can win it or not.
I think that's a good indicator, absolutely.
So Florida, to use the president's language, is huge then because the Republican won, right?
Absolutely. Florida is in one of those contentious contests that Georgia's in. It always been purple. It's been trending red recently, but it's going more blue right now. That's probably the most significant victory for the Republicans, is maintaining the governorship of the state of Florida.
So if he gets a second term, his path is going to be different this time around.
Oh, absolutely. He's going to have to focus on the Deep South. He's going to have to focus on Florida. He's going to have to focus on Texas as well, not just to win the presidency, but to make sure Texas stays Republican, because it, believe it or not, nobody would ever thought it would happen, is purpling as well. And it could be in contest for 2020, but especially 2024.
You pointed out something to me earlier. The fact that the Democrats gained control of the House is not a complete defeat for President Trump and his future, right?
This is what Trump lives for. He has, a political enemy in Congress now that he can fight against, that he can wage political combat with, in the Democrats controlling the House of Representatives. Now Trump can be Trump, and people Republicans like when Trump is Trump. He can be combative. He has somebody to blame now. He said this on Wednesday during his press conference. I love the fact that the Dems control the House because now I can blame them for everything. That's what he's good at. Why he wanted Nancy Pelosi to be Speaker of the House, which he also said on Wednesday, was because she's combative as well. She's a great negotiator. That is going to pit her against Trump. She's going to try to out-Trump Trump, but you can't out-Trump Trump. You need a different strategy because he's remarkable at being himself.
I thought it was interesting on Wednesday when he said Nancy Pelosi deserves to be the Speaker of the House. I hope she gets it. And she came back and said, you don't deserve anything. Here's how you get to be successful in life. It's not because you deserve it. Do we have to pick apart everything somebody else says these days, every word?
I think we're getting to that, but I think that's unfortunate. I think our intent needs to be taken more seriously than what we actually say, and what do we mean? And let's start talking about the larger issues rather than the little mistakes we might say.
What about the relationship between President Trump and the media? We saw that come to a head again this past week when he yanked the press credentials for the White House of a CNN reporter because of the way the reporter behaved during a news conference. Your thoughts on his relationship with the media going forward?
I think I'll probably be the only political scientist to say this, but it takes two to tango. Trump is, of course, obstructing the media's capability for them to cover him the way they want to cover him. At the same time, the mainstream media, national media, is being much more combative, much more, not just trying to hold the president to account, which is kind of like their unofficial constitutional duty. They don't have a role in the Constitution, but this is kind of their responsibilities to hold the government to account. But they do seem to be taking President Trump's presidency much more personally and much more negative, and therefore a lot of the mainstream media, national media, are fighting out against him. That's, of course, going to make him even more combative against the media. The media is supposed to check the president, and the president has every right to check the media as well. They're supposed to, again, it's a beautiful marketplace of ideas, checks and balances that the founders had envisioned. Alexis de Tocqueville says, one of the great political philosophers says, this is what makes America perfect, is that the fight between media and government, the good-natured battle that they're supposed to keep each other in account. So they have a part to play in this as well. I don't think it's proper for the media to really be that combative towards President Trump to fact check him. It seems out of decorum. At the same time, President Trump is definitely out of decorum as well, the way he engages in conflict and the way he personally attacks and offends the media. So I think both parts are to blame in this.
Yeah, but are we wrong to expect that decorum in a setting, especially the White House where this latest news conference took place? Isn't it just good behavior when you're in the presence of a president of the United States to check yourself and to be respectful? I don't care who holds that office, to argue with that man or woman. Isn't that just at its very core improper?
It's definitely not in decorum. It's unprofessional, I think. But to give credit to the mainstream media, they say because Trump is so out of the ordinary for a president that he's not in the establishment. He does not fit any of the rules or models that the presidency often fits. Now, to his credit, he said that's exactly the way he was going to be, and that's what I think got him into the White House, because he didn't care about all this PC culture. So the media says we have to fight this because you're going against what the establishment is, and we're part of the establishment, so we're going to wage combat with you. And in so doing, I think they've allowed themselves to be much more combative and to kind of played Trump at Trump's game, which brings down both sides' level of etiquette and professionalism. They're accusing Trump of the same behavior that they are in fact engaging in.
Well, if you turn on the computer and read any internet article, not any, but a lot of them, or if you listen to network news, you might think that nobody likes our president, but then you look at his approval rating and it keeps climbing. What is the deal here? And it goes back to a question I've asked you a million times. Do Republicans just not answer pollsters honestly? Do they not give their opinions so that when you do see those national opinion polls and surveys, they're skewed?
There are a lot of people that don't answer honestly. That has to fall within the margin of error. There's sampling bias. There's all types of fancy political science terms that go into this. And this is why the 2016 elections just didn't turn out right for pollsters, is because lots of Trump supporters were afraid of being publicized as a Trump supporter and what would happen to them, shame and this type of thing, because they're voting for somebody who doesn't fit the stereotypical model of a president. So they lie about it. We see this all the time. Almost every American lies about, I don't want to say that, a lot of Americans lie about their income level.
Sure.
For instance, when somebody calls and samples them. I would never tell them that I make like 10 grand a year or something.
No.
I try to increase it. That's
Absolutely.
Natural to human nature.
You have to increase it.
So there's ways, there's sampling statistics and methodologies that counter that, but you just can't, you have to be cautious in this era about Trump, what type of information we get from our polls.
We asked you this in the town hall meeting we had a few weeks ago on the Means Report. Dr. Albert was kind enough to bring some of his students into our studio. We had a great Means Report that day. It was one of my favorites. But I want to ask you again in front of this audience this week, who influences our young voters? We talked about the Democrats moving to the big cities in America and changing states from blue to red, from red to blue. Who influences the way our young people turn out and what party they're going to be tied to later?
Everybody does.
Everybody does. So the parents can't control it.
No, not anymore. Unless you censor your household and don't allow any electronic devices or iDevices connecting. Now we're entering the I generation, Generation Z, which is the first generation completely to grow up with iPhone capability or with internet capability just everywhere. That level of access to knowledge is profound. No other generation in the history of humankind has had that type of access to information. With that comes all types of proper information, facts, analysis that you can get, but also comes social media influence. What does Hollywood say about politics? What does each big shot in each of the parties say about politics? You have a lot of things that you have to evaluate and analyze, and a lot of young people aren't quite equipped yet. A lot of people, even political scientists, aren't quite equipped yet to deal or analyze all this information. Never mind fake news that you have, which is a really serious information warfare campaign that exists on the internet, waged by botnets, by Russia, by North Korea, by all these different companies that create fake personalities to spread fake news purposefully to influence how people in the United States and throughout the Western world vote and think about different things. They push out false news. political scientists aren't quite able to handle that type of information warfare. Never mind our students yet, or our young people that are still in middle school or high school or just entering college. So I think it becomes even more important as parents, as media personalities, as professors. This is my most serious job right now. It's not research or service or the news. It's making sure students know how to comb through that news and decide for themselves what's good, reliable, and verifiable information that they can make an opinion about themselves without any impact from Hollywood, President Trump, and especially no impact from me. I don't want to bias my students. I want them to know how to sift through the information, see what's good information, what's bad information, and be able to stand their ground when they make an argument.
Can you answer this question? It might be unanswerable. So let's say they've sifted, and let's say they've filtered, and let's say they're well informed. More Democrats or Republicans coming out of colleges these days?
You know, we see a different type of conservative coming out of college than we did, let's say, when I graduated, well, 5 years ago, let's say. I'm teasing.
Yeah.
And then we see a different type of Democrat. I would say it's probably 55-45 Democrat. I never asked my students that, but just sampling. But it appears that it's in that nature that's trending the way American politics is trending right now, and I think that's an influence of our culture.
Dr. Craig Albert, a busy half hour for sure. Thank you for all you continue to contribute to us. We appreciate it.